What's poppin', players? Rappers want to be ball players and ball players want to be rappers. Finally made it to part 5. This is the ones that y'all been waiting for. Any ones that y'all don't know in the past, like my dude Foots would say, go do your Googles. These are all greats. All these songs are songs that live in the lexicon of music that we all grew up to. All these ball players are legends in the game that put it down in their particular sport. All these artists, soundtracks to our lives. We salute all of y'all for entertaining us in your profession and giving us your best. Last but not least, I'm Gold Ray. This is part 5 of the Ballin' MCs. First up, Mike Tyson. We thought that he was going to massacre everything in the ring. Or should we say, Iron Mike. There is a difference. 50 Cent knocks out everything that he puts his hand on in the industry. Hate it or love it, both phenoms. Next up on the list of the Ballin' MCs, Mike Tyson, 50 Cent. Hate it or love it. Next up on the list, Giannis Antetokounmpo. I hope I said it right. If I didn't, I apologize. But he came all the way from Africa and went from a king to a god. He played the game like a machine. Conway the Machine. Next up on the list of the Ballin' MCs, Giannis, Conway the Machine, from a king to a god. Or fear God. Next up on the list of the Ballin' MCs, Benny the Butcher. I apologize. Anthony Edwards. And when he get the ball and he coming down the lane, you can hear the Butcher's coming. Benny the Butcher. Next up on the list of the Ballin' MCs, Anthony Edwards, Benny the Butcher, Famous. Next up on the list, Carmelo Anthony. One of the scoring legends of the game. And I'm sure trying to guard him, they said he would beat you up. Probably you might be shook to guarding. Shook One's freestyle. Fabulous. Next up on the list of the Ballin' MCs, Fabulous, Carmelo Anthony, Fabulous, Shook One's freestyle. Both cool, both demeanors seem like they. Next up on the list, KD, Kevin Durant. He kill you from all 3 phases of the game. Layup, mid-range, 3-point. He like a firing squad. J. Cole. Next up on the list of the Ballin' MCs, Kevin Durant, J. Cole, Fire Squad. Next up on the list, Kyrie Irving. He do things on his own. Made me what I am. Saw the Prince. Next up on the list of the Ballin' MCs, Kyrie Irving, Saw the Prince, Made Me What I Am. Y'all know both of them. Y'all try to negate their skills and this and that because they don't want to play in the reindeer games, but y'all already know. If you know, you know. Next up on the list of the Ballin' MCs, Diana Taurasi. Come and get some. The Brat. Next up on the list of the Ballin' MCs, Diana Taurasi, The Brat, Come and Get Some. Next up on the list, John Sally. Is he the first player to win a chip with 3 different teams? He played with Isaiah Thomas, Jordan, and Kobe and Shaq. What a job. Definitely the dude. Both smokers. Next up on the list of the Ballin' MCs, John Sally, Devin the dude. What a job. We all know Devin hooked on every song or everybody known's song. And if you don't got a hook by Devin, you might want to go get one. One of the best that ever do it in the game that never gets talked about. That might have been one of the original people that sung on tracks. I'm just saying. Next up on the list, Hakeem Olajuwon. You got them 2 chips in the middle of Mike. I'm a boss. Slim Thugger. Next up on the list of the Ballin' MCs, Hakeem Olajuwon. Slim Thug. I'm a boss. Next up on the list, Shamika Holdsclaw. One that nobody ever talks about as far as how cold she was at Tennessee and when she got to the league. That's what it is. Eve. Next up on the list of the Ballin' MCs, Shamika Holdsclaw. Eve. That's what it is. Next up on the list, Nneka Ogwumike. She the big bad mama when she on the court. Foxy Brown. Next up on the list of the Ballin' MCs, Nneka Ogwumike, Foxy Brown, Big Bad Mama. I forget about you. Next up on the list, Will Smith, The Fresh Prince, Brand New Funk. Y'all should go listen to him. Next up on the list, Charles Barkley. He was called the Round Mound of Rebound, and he used to regulate the boards. Warren G. Regulators, mount up. Next up on the list of the Ballin' MCs, Charles Barkley, Warren G. Regulate. Next up on the list, Venus Williams. Now, before a young sister came along, Venus had the sweetest game I know. I ain't no singer. Sweetest thing I know, Lauryn Hill. Next up on the list of the Ballin' MCs, Venus Williams, Lauryn Hill, sweetest thing I know. Next up on the list, Sue Bird, ain't to be played with, Mia X. Next up on the list of the Ballin' MCs, Sue Bird, Mia X, ain't to be played with. Next up on the list, Jerry Rice. He put them records out there so far. Will they ever be touched? He say, can't touch this. MC Hammer. Next up on the list of the Ballin' MCs, Jerry Rice, MC Hammer. Can't touch this. Next up on the list, Dominique Wilkins. This get a little tricky because him and Andre the 3000 are the human highlight. Now, back in the day, Neek was so fresh and so clean. It's Outcast. Prototype is about a woman. So, next up on the list of the Ballin' MCs, Dominique Wilkins, Andre 3000, so fresh and so clean, because he did it down in the ATL with the Outcast. Next up on the list, Maya Moore. She came in the game, she gave us her best, and she left. Took us on a roller coaster of love. But when she scored on you, she would hit you with that ooh-wee Rhapsody. Next up on the list of the Ballin' MCs, Maya Moore, Rhapsody, ooh-wee. Next up on the list, Gary Payton. Always look like he talking smack to you. You don't know me. T.I. Next up on the list of the Ballin' MCs, Gary Payton, T.I., You Don't Know Me. Next up on the list, Bo Jackson. Whether he was hitting home runs or running touchdowns, you always knew that he was going to tear the roof off. Busta Rhymes. Next up on the list of the Ballin' MCs, Bo Jackson, Busta Rhymes, tear the roof off. Next up on the list, Tamika Catchings. Look at the numbers. Super duper fly. Missy. Next up on the list of the Ballin' MCs, Tamika Catchings, Missy, Super duper fly, or The Rain. Next up on the list, Kevin Garnett, Silverback Gorilla, Paul Pierce, Gangster and a Gentleman. Ray Allen would hit you with that kiss of death. You know him as the Locks when they formed, but they all had separate projects. So next up on the list of the Ballin' MCs, Kevin Garnett, Sheek Luch, Silverback Gorilla, Paul Pierce, Styles P, A Gangster and a Gentleman, Ray Allen, Jadakiss, Kiss of Death, The Locks, Ballin' MCs. Next up on the list of the Ballin' MCs, Dennis Rodman. Won championships with Detroit and the Bulls and the Lakers. Two of the best, most understood icons, DMX. Where my dogs at? Dennis Rodman, next up on the list of the Ballin' MCs, Dennis Rodman, DMX, Where My Dogs At? Or Fucking with D. Next up on the list, Dwayne Wade. He has come a long way. Came through the wire. Kanye West. Two fashion icons in the game. Next up on the list of the Ballin' MCs, Dwayne Wade, Kanye West, Through the Wire. Next up on the list, Tim Duncan. They call him Mr. or the Big Fundamental. He always gonna shine a light on the game. 5 championships, almost 6. Common, fundamentally sound. Mr. EGOT. Next up on the list of the Ballin' MCs, Tim Duncan, Common, The Light. Next up on the list, Vince Carter. He just kept going and going and going. Put in 20 years in the game, 20 plus. Half man, half amazing. Should we say, ballaholic, E40. I'm not rapping too fast. Y'all just listening too slow. Next up on the list of the Ballin' MCs, Vince Carter, E40, ballaholic. Next up on the list, Joel Embiid. All the way from Cameroon, he found a way to get an NBA MVP. Now, find a way to get us a championship. Because, yes, I am a Sixer fan. Davies. So, next up on the list of the Ballin MCs, Joel Embiid, Davies, found a way. Next up on the list, Lawrence Taylor. He was the big papa of New York and of the league. Maybe considered one of the best defensive players or best players to ever play the game. And Biggie Smalls, whenever he sacked a track, it was over with. Next up on the list of the Ballin MCs, Lawrence Taylor, Biggie Smalls, Big Papa. Next up on the list, Dawn Staley. She always been the queen bee. Lil' Kim. Next up on the list of the Ballin MCs, Dawn Staley, Lil' Kim, Queen Bee. Of course I'm not gonna say it. Next up on the list, one of the freakiest to ever carry the ball, Barry Sanders. Some say he might be the best to ever carry the ball, but he definitely would hit you with so many moves that you would be dizzy. We can freak it. Corrupt. Next up on the list of the Ballin MCs, Barry Sanders, Corrupt, we can freak it. Next up on the list, Barry Bonds. No matter what they say, he changed the game. 7 MVPs for DJ Quick. Also, if y'all want to let him into the Baseball Hall of Fame, I don't want to party with you. Next up on the list of the Ballin MCs, Barry Bonds, DJ Quick, changed the game. Next up on the list, T-Mac, Tracy McGrady. At his height, with his handles and his shooting ability, defense, he was the formula until he got hurt. DOC, till he got hurt. Next up on the list of the Ballin MCs, Tracy McGrady, DOC, the formula. Next up on the list, Deion Sanders, the last of a dying breed. His side of the field was untouchable. Scarface. Next up on the list of the Ballin MCs, Deion Sanders, Scarface, The Untouchable, the whole CD, or The Last of the Dying Breed. Next up on the list, Isaiah Thomas, Zeke. He got one championship, came back, still mad. All he needs is one mic, Nas. Next up on the list of the Ballin MCs, Isaiah Thomas, Nas, still mad at. But the song will be One Mic. You say song will be, you'll find out shortly. Next up on the list, who been on one since he came into the league? LeBron James. So far, so gone. So far gone are the records. God's plan. Drake. Next up on the list of the Ballin MCs, LeBron James, Drake. I'm on one. Next up on the list, Steph Curry. And put them 3 fingers in the air, because that jumper is high powered. Kendrick Lamar. Next up on the list of the Ballin MCs, Steph Curry, Kendrick Lamar, High Power. If you remember, TDE is the Golden State Warriors, if you put them all together. Absol, I should have had you and Sean Livingston. Next up on the list, we've seen both these brothers go from boys to men. Kobe Bryant. He came into the game and turned into a mega man. When he came back, he was like Nino and the Carters, Lil Wayne. Next up on the list of the Ballin MCs, Kobe Bryant, Lil Wayne. Just go listen to any of the Carters. That's Kobe Bryant. Next up on the list, Larry Bird, or should we say Larry Legend, Rap God, Eminem. Next up on the list of the Ballin MCs, Larry Bird, Eminem, Rap God. Next up on the list of the Ballin MCs, both these brothers might be the most famous of their contemporaries. Shaq, top dog. He the pitch man for everything, but he paid the cost to be the boss. Snoop, most famous rapper ever. So next up on the Ballin MCs, Shaq, Snoop, top dog, the whole CD. Next up on the list, Serena Williams. As she rose to the top of the tennis profession, girls run the world. Beyonce. We could also say Bootylicious, but next up on the list of the Ballin MCs, Serena Williams, Beyonce, run the world. Next up on the list of the Ballin MCs, Irvin Magic Johnson. He ain't a businessman, he's a businessman. The blueprint, all I need, Jay-Z. Next up on the list of the Ballin MCs, Magic Johnson, Jay-Z, the blueprint. But all I need will be the song. Next up on the list, some consider the GOAT, Michael Jordan. Always had ambitions of a rider, but always had the eyes, all eyes on me since the beginning. Tupac. Next up on the list of the Ballin MCs, two bald-head assassins, Michael Jordan, Tupac, all eyes on me. And last but not least, Muhammad Ali. One of the most epic fights, the Thriller in Manila. Float like a butterfly, sting like a bee. Sounds like Michael Jackson to me. Thriller, the album. Last but not least, Muhammad Ali, Michael Jackson, Thriller. So that concludes part 5 and all of the parts of the Ballin MCs. I'm Gold Ray. It was a pleasure listening to all of these catalogs to find the right song for each of you athletes We love hip hop. We seen it in its creation. Athletes always have some music in their ear to get them to how their game wants to be played. So rappers want to be ball players and ball players want to be rappers. There's the list. Now there's a playlist that goes with each section. On Tidal, it should be on Apple by the time you get to this. There'll be a playlist of each section of in the row. You'll just be able to hit the song, listen to all the songs in a row, and it'll take you back and reminisce on hip hop. Let's get those songs streaming out there for all these artists whose song haven't been out there for so long. And it tells the story of hip hop. I love it so much. Hip hop runs through my DNA. And you'll be seeing me around. When you see the gold toothpick, I might be dropping some jewels. I'm Gold Ray. If you like the list, share it, comment, like it. There you go. Peace.